you could write it in the chat or also ask it. Okay, we already had some comments here. Let's see it. Okay. Okay. Should I read it out?
I don't get the question. It says the primary problem is that the labor protection rule of the professional staff is missing. During the communication process of asking the question, the personal data protection of the living people asking the question. Could you reframe it? I don't understand what...
Okay, well, let's see who wrote this.
Maybe it's the translation.
Yes. Okay, well, Grass, if you could reframe it, the question, that would be a big help for us. Thank you. Until that, you could think about the question, and then I would like to ask the offline participants whether there is a question regarding to the presentation. Yes?
I was checking online the tools that have been used in Spain, and I read quite a lot of times that it was all within the public domain, so introduced by the public organizations in cooperation with other public organizations, with the constitution of private entities. Is that something that comes from the Spanish system, or is it an expectation that in Spain this is kept?
It's a very
criminal system, the public domain, because in other countries like in Britain, the market costs
private companies. Yeah, it's a very interesting question. This is beginning to change a little bit with facial recognition, because the facial recognition tool that we still don't know how it works, because it's now on the data protection office, is done by police, but also with the cooperation of a private entity. But the main reason because of that is that we have a serious problem of lack of transparency with police data in Spain and judicial data. That's why they only have the data. The data is from the police, so it's very difficult. And these experiences are very curious because these tools, the AI tool, very cool, and the other actuarial tools, is because there was a computer system, a police officer that is IT computer system guy, and he developed the tool inside the police. And Biogen is because there are two psychologists that work on risk assessment tools, and they are police officers, so they developed the tool. So we, I don't know if we can say it that way, but we are in a prehistoric moment for the development of this kind of tools. And it only depends, first, on that they want to share the data, and they only share the data with people from the institutions. So if you are not police officer, you will have a lot of problems to access to this kind of data. And second, it depends on what they want to do with the tool. Maybe in the future with judicial sentencing is going to change, because in Spain there is not a public repository of sentences, but editorials have the sentences and they buy it. So now these kind of tools that I explained for sentencing are becoming to be used for private companies, like Westlaw, Tina LeBlanc, and others. They are using this kind of tools. So maybe we will see a development there. But at the moment, it's very difficult. If you don't work with them, it's very, very difficult to make this. And it's true that it's very difficult, different as in the States or in UK, or even in the Netherlands, where are private companies who are developing this kind of tools.
I thought it was an issue of principle that, say, the federal government or
It is supposed to be, but I think it's more related with the reality that if you don't have the data, it's very difficult to work with this. The exception is facial recognition. Why? Because facial recognition is related with CCTVs, and CCTVs is managed by private companies. Because they have this, is what is happening in Nice, for example, with facial recognition and with the use in Nice in France with facial recognitions. Are private companies who are developing the software, and this new software that is being used for kidnapping kids in Nice that has been rejected by the Data Protection Office in France was developed by a private company. But because before they were using the normal software to the CCTVs.
Okay, I have also a question. Well, we already discussed before the lecture about the new AI Act, which will also affect the criminal justice and the law enforcement cases. What do you think about that? What will bring to us in criminal justice? Do you see some drawbacks of the AI Act or some maybe some benefits of the AI Act from the criminal justice system part? What do you think?
The first thing is that we still don't know how it's going to be the AI Act, and there are a lot of doubts now because with all the ChatGPT 4 thing, they decided to rethink some phrase and some ethical aspects. So I believe it's going to be important, the AI Act. I hope that it's going to be more clarifier than the legal regime that we had before, because, you know, with GDPR, solving the problem of AI with GDPR has no sense. AI is not only about privacy. There are a lot of things involved related to ethical aspects that are not properly privacy, that you cannot regulate. And this is what happened with GDPR, that GDPR is very specific with the criminal justice topic. It's not clear what we can do and what we cannot do. It's like a general statement. But the problem I see is that maybe the AI Act has going to be the same and has going to create more general statements, and it's not going to be clear with that. Why? Because with this kind of technology, if you are very specific, you can put doors in the field, and that can be very dangerous also. Try to regulate things without knowing how it's going to be developed is complicated. So I am a little bit skeptical. I believe we need a frame, but then we need to reframe it every time. I don't know if I answered the question, but I believe we need to reframe it. The AI Act is not going to be a milestone that is going to regulate perfectly all the AI. That makes no sense. We lawyers, we know nothing about technology, and we are going to solve all the problems that are coming. Makes no sense. But it's true that we have to be aware of which are going to be the ethical problems, and let's see. Also, there is a convention of Council of Europe. I am working also with a group that is working in this part, specifically in prison system. And let's see. But at this moment, you can only be very general.
Yeah, because it is also debatable. For example, in the first draft of the AI Act said that, for example, deepfake detection, if it is used by law enforcement, and some documentum screening systems are considered to be high-risk AI systems, which means they have to meet the requirements of higher provisions and more stricter provisions.
Yeah, but at the same time have exceptions.
Yeah, and now it is not high risk anymore, so it is kind of debatable. Before, law enforcement use cases were high risk, but now there are exceptions, so it's also questionable.
Yeah,
so
I think it was a nice approach, the idea of high risk and all of that, but doesn't solve everything. And
it is also questionable if it's private entities do the software itself and give to the law enforcement authorities, then also it's questionable how it will be regulated in that case. If it's not own program software, for example. So it's also questionable, all of these, maybe. Yes, but it's really interesting because in Hungary, I don't know that we have any kind of AI applications like in
You don't have risk assessment tools in prison?
No, I don't think so.
Any traditional tool for risk assessment?
Well, which is like this.
For decisions in prison? they used to have in all prison systems, but they are like more not computerized. But at the moment you put it inside the software and you generalize it, you are going to have enough amount of data that someone is going to say, why we don't see new correlations for this? And then changes everything.
Yeah, but I think we don't have this. I'm not sure about that. We will ask Csaba, but I think no. So in Poland, they have. I know that because we have a comparative research project about that. But in here, I don't think so. So we are not really well digitalized.
Maybe it's better.
Yes, but it's really nice. I really liked your slide that you collected everything through the whole criminal justice system, how AI could be entered, and it's really well presented and nice that it's great for our project to see through how it can be used, because sometimes it's really difficult to follow AI or anything which is related to AI or technology enters.
The problem, I believe, is that we used to talk about AI as it is a thing, and there is no AI. There are like 1,000 different kind of tools, and injustice is the same. You talk about justice, like justice or policing is the same. There are very different functions, and I think make no sense to think in something so important as ethics related to behavior. What behavior? What function? What tool? Or what? All that.
And what do you think? What is maybe the most challenging part of these use cases in overall? How could you summarize?
I think the most challenging part is relating human factor with the AI and systems and the algorithmic systems. The most interesting part for me is that we are thinking, for example, with algorithmic bias and all of this question about discrimination. We're still comparing AI tools with nothing. But we have human decisions that we know that are more biased than computer decisions. So I think the very interesting thing is how we relate human bias with computer systems. How is going to be applied. What is happening, for example, with Biogen is very interesting because police officers now are being under surveillance, because if they say the risk is low and the husband killed the woman next day, you will be in the screen, you will be in television, and you will say algorithm doesn't work. But if algorithm says high risk, and you say, okay, I don't think it's necessary protection, there is a kid involved, I don't want to private parenthood law, so let's wait a little bit, and then kills the woman. So you will have a very big problem, and in Spain we have the first sentence that condemned the regionality of the city for not applying a high measure. And I think the most interesting thing is how humans are going to identify what an algorithm is, what high risk really means. Because if we don't understand what high risk means or how correlations work, if you don't understand that in some algorithms you have causal inference, but with a very weak model, but in others you have very big correlation, but you don't really understand where it comes. So you will not understand how to apply it. And the human is the one that is going to be applied, because we have decided that all these tools can have and should have a human supervision and a human final decision. So for me, the gap between the human decision and the algorithm is a very interesting thing, how we deal with that. In the States, there is a very interesting research with these compass and these algorithmic tools by John Monahan, another psychologist, that are analyzing how judges interpret and apply these algorithmic tools. And we can see that the judges that are very punitive, they don't care about the algorithm if they say risk is very low. They still apply prison. But those judges that are less punitive, when they have the information that the risk is high, they care and they take into account the algorithm, even if they, in any cases, should not apply prison and should apply very different rules. So I think the most interesting thing is how it's going to relate human application of computer decisions. So I think this is the key thing, and we are not researching enough about this. Also with ChatGPT and with other different tools.
Yes, and you mentioned that in Spain they use already an AI system on gender-based violence. What is the reason behind that? Why, for example, this type of crimes are connected to this? Because of the high latency? Or what was the reason behind that? Because
it's not properly an AI, it's an algorithmic system, but it's actual one. But yes, it's a very interesting question. Why in gender violence? At first, because there is a big legitimacy on this. Second, they say we are not doing an algorithm to imprisonment, but to protection. So the legitimacy is different. They say our algorithm doesn't decide what we are going to do with the offender, besides what we are going to do with the victim. But that is not totally true, because at the end, what you are going to do with the victim also relates to the offender. And at the same time, when you decide that there is a high risk in a case that is in a judgment, you are saying to the judge that is going to have the information that this guy is a high risk
a tanulás folyamatát leíró adatokat, múltban törölt adatok vissza agregálására lehet alkalmazni.
Risk assessment by the information that you receive. But why in gender violence? Because gender violence is like a big topic, a big problem, not especially
hogy a Fehérgalléros Kiberbűnözők értelmezés-mulasztást okoznak UX interfészen. Nyom meg az OK gombot, ne olvasd el a 3000 oldalas szabályt. És a értelmezés-mulasztás tanúsításához nincsenek űrlapok, pedig az értelmezés-mulasztás folyamata rendszeres.
They say they are going to apply it also in fraud, for fraud prevention, but a different kind of tool.
Let's see whether we have some questions here in the chat.
That is very interesting. That is in Hungarian.
Yes.
Most nézegetünk.
Yes. Okay. We don't have any more questions. Yes?
So I wanted to ask how if there is an academic consensus among lawyers, if there is a consensus in Spain about the application of these systems, and if there's an actual big debate among, I mean, let's focus on criminal lawyers. I say, the field being divided by people who would accept trade-offs, even heavy trade-offs, Working about fundamentally.
Mászni nem beszél, de nem tudjuk ki az.
Also very interesting question. I don't think we can say there is a big, there is a total consensus. There is a consensus, there is a big debate now, and it's a very big topic. There is a consensus that there are human rights and ethical risks related to this, but there is like, I could say that there are like two views. One more pessimistic and one more catastrophic and one more critic with the use of this kind of tools. I'm not there. But it's the mainstream one, I would say. It's very easy to put in this position because I understand that it's very easy, first, not to understand how these tools work, not to think in how judge decides. Because for me it's very funny that we are now worrying about how the decision is biased.
De a kávéhoz csinál sajtos kenyeret sajttal.
Is biased and it's very, and it's made this way. Risk, no risk, yes. So now we are worried about biased decisions. So for me it's very interesting this. But I understand that I think they are right in the part that it's very dangerous to accept that this is going to only improve and this is going to make objective decisions. There are no objective decisions, all is biased, all comes from, there is no neutral technology, and I agree with that totally. All technology is defined by a previous idea, so I believe in this case is real. At the same time, I believe there is another view, that is my view and others, not a lot, that we believe that it's very important to be informed about the reality of this. I think there is a very big problem with lawyers dealing with technology, that is that they don't know about what they are dealing with. He agrees with that. It's the only thing he agrees. But yes, that maybe you should also deal with law and ethics. But the thing is, it's necessary to understand how this technology works, how really, what is the science inside that. And if you go deeper, you will see that there is no magic, no fancy things. There is something that can be understandable and you can check and cross the problems. So I think it's better to deal with the technology and not to be catastrophic. It's better to try to understand how it works and to solve the problem and not to say we don't want AI use. It's the same with ChatGPT 4, and I think interdisciplinarity is totally essential and necessary for that. At the same time, I believe that Europe has decided to apply a ethical and fundamental rights approach, and I think it's what we are, and we cannot sell nothing. If we want to be China, we are late. So let's see where we arrive. I don't know if I answered.
And is there proper training, for example, for judges and other lawyers? No, for this kind of
there is no proper training or nothing, and it would be totally essential to. Yes, for police officers in the case of Biogen, but Biogen is the training is in how to get the data and all of that. So I believe this will come. Now there is an initiative in UNESCO about a training for judges, and I believe there are going to be a lot of initiatives in this sense, and I think it's necessary.
Yeah, but it's really nice because probably at your university you introduce these new type of things and questions for the future lawyers, I guess. So
nice. I believe this is the future of law. In the case of lawyers, I believe it's totally necessary to use these tools and to know how they work. And I believe this is a perfect example that law has been built from the clouds and make no sense to do it when technology comes and changes everything.
And what is your experience at the university? Are the law students interested in this kind of
I think so. Yeah? I think so, but I think the problem we have it more with the professors and the lecturers, and especially in criminal law, that we are very old school. But I don't know. With the students, I believe they are very interested. But I think we have also to change the way we study and we teach law. We have to include more empirics. I think we have to teach methods. I think it's very necessary to change a little bit the way we do that. But this is going to be very difficult.
Yeah, well, I think it is the same in Hungary. We could say that. Yes. Yes.
There is now a new Society of Empirical Legal Studies. I'm part of the foundators of this European Society of Empirical Legal Studies. And I believe this is an opportunity. This year is going to be the first conference in Poland. And I think it's an interesting opportunity to be there.
Well, maybe any more questions? Okay, well, I think we discussed everything in depth, and it was really nice to hear your research project and the main issues. It was really interesting because really in Hungary we do not have such tools yet. I hope we will have. We also thank you very much, the ones who joined us on the online sphere. If there is no more questions, then I think it's time to close this session, and we warmly welcome everyone to the next session, which will be on when it will be exactly on May 25, which will be a workshop about digitalization in the courts, I think. So you are warmly welcome also.
Thank you very
much. Thank you.
Thank you.